It's just after 5, so I think we will begin. We have one member that has not joined us yet. It's 5:01, and I will call the Municipal Planning Commission meeting to order for Wednesday, March 17th. And as I said, it is 5:02. Before us, you have an agenda, and been asked to consider a order change. Unless I hear otherwise, we would read 4.2 prior to item 4.1. I have a motion from anyone for the agenda. Member Hibbs?
Yes, that would be fine.
Thank you. So as rearranged then, all those in favor? Very good. Member Gallant? Affirmative?
Yes.
Thank you. Forgive me for asking verbally, but all I have for you is an icon, so I do not have a video feed for you.
Oh, well, I can see myself.
Well, as long as you know how you voted, then that's good.
We can see you now.
Exactly.
We just can't see Tyler now.
Oh.
That's a yes for me.
So I just received a note from Member Gullitson. He's having difficulties with his electronic feed here. So, Jen, I'm just going to give you this one. Can you address it how you see fit? 7 p.m. What's up with that? Very good. So we will start then with our minutes from February 3rd. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those? Member Nauchin?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I thought I saw you raising your hand like you wanted to make a motion for those minutes. Did anyone have any concerns, revisions for us to consider for the minutes? If I could have a motion for acceptance then, please. Member Hibbs?
Yeah, I can make that motion to accept the minutes as presented. I saw no errors.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other hands being raised, so I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Thank you. That was unanimously in favor. So as suggested earlier, then we will bump down to item number 4.2, the care residence commercial development at 4809 and 4813 51st Avenue. And will our development officer, Chappelle, are you going to be presenting?
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Okay, so just quickly, in the resolutions, you might want to just quickly add that there would be a 3.7% parking variance. And we did amend conditions 13 and 14. So I emailed those out. They might appear a little bit different than the report that was posted online. Okay, an application has been received for commercial building with a care residence to be developed on the second floor at what is currently municipally referred to as 4809 and 4831 51st Street. The site is designated C1 Downtown Commercial District and falls within the Old Town Main Street District and the mixed use overlay of the downtown area redevelopment plan. The parcels appear to be on separate titles, and the lots that form the parcel being developed should be consolidated in one title in one of two ways: by consolidation by title, listing all 3 lots in one certificate, or by plan of consolidation, where you create a new lot using a registered plan. Neighboring property consultations were sent out to 34 adjacent landowners within 60 meters of the subject site. At the time of writing this report, 2 responses were received, both in support of the application. The proposed uses are deemed to be retail, restaurant, office, and personal services, which are permitted uses in the C1 district, and a care residence, which is a discretionary use. Occupancy permits will be required for each of the commercial uses once it is determined which unit will would occupy, which business would occupy which unit. The district allows for front and side yards of 0 meters with a rear yard setback requirement based on the area needed to accommodate on-site parking and loading spaces. The care residence parking requirement formula requires 2 parking spaces plus 1 additional parking space per 3 beds and 1 additional parking space per staff person at the maximum number of staff present. The number of staff at the care residence at any given time will be 2, only at shift change. Therefore, a total of 7 parking spaces would be required for the care residence. I don't know if you can see that site plan. Might be a little bit blurry, but you get an idea of what the parking looks like at the back. This is oriented north. Since the areas devoted to each commercial bay are not known at this time, the parking calculation is based on the multi-tenant lease bay building standard, which comes out to a total of 21 parking spaces. Site plan shows 27, 28 are required. Therefore, we're requesting a 3.7% parking variance. The site plan does not indicate vehicle access into the proposed accessory storage building. The parking spaces directly in front of the garage doors should be assigned to the care residence. This allows for access to the garage and use of the space in front of the door for parking. The proposed development complies with lot frontage, coverage, and building height. The main building is to span the majority of the lot frontage. I can skip over that. I'll just head into care residences. Care residences located within commercial districts are to be treated as an accessory dwelling unit. The proposed care residence meets the requirements of section 10.2 on accessory dwelling units. The care residence forms part of a mixed-use development on the site with the principal use being the ground level commercial space. It is located on an upper floor and separate from the proposed commercial space. The care residence has its own entrance separate from those used for the commercial space. Our land use bylaw is a little bit funny in the way that it handles accessory buildings in the C1 district. It doesn't specifically say that accessory buildings are allowed in the C1 district, so we're considering this to be an accessory use storage building, and our department felt that was acceptable because accessory buildings are referenced throughout the bylaw. So accessory buildings, I don't think I need to get into that anymore. Everything is compliant with respect to the setbacks and the dimensions of the proposed accessory building, which would serve to provide storage for the care residents. With respect to overlay district requirements, infill development is to be sensitive to the character, scale, facade, and materials of adjacent buildings. This building complements and matches the design of the newly renovated adjacent Hannah's Seeds. Building massing greater than 2 stories is to be stepped back. The proposed building is 2 stories and fits with this requirement. Rooftop mechanical equipment and access points are not shown on the drawings. These should be screened from view, which may be achieved through placement to the south portion of the roof or behind a low parapet wall. The front and rear building entrances are well defined and visible. There are no awnings or other entrance covers. However, this is not a mandatory requirement. The proposed treatment of the south side of the building is well done and matches that of the building elevation facing the public street in terms of architectural variety and interest. The building materials and building elevations of the proposed accessory building have not been provided. The building frontage oriented towards the lane has a distinct main entrance for the care residence component of the building. The proposed 3.86 to 3.94 meter setback from the east lane and the 1.83 meter setback from the west lane are sufficient to facilitate loading spaces, pedestrian access, and visibility approaching the intersection of each lane and 51st Avenue. There's no lighting plan submitted yet, other than the 6 gooseneck lamps over the main entrance on the south building elevation. Seen here, sort of. With respect to landscaping, the minimum area to be landscaped is 10% of the lot, including any side yard adjacent public roadway. The site landscaping plan indicates 13% of the subject site has been landscaped using a combination of grass areas and decorative washed rock in the planting beds. The 3 deciduous trees proposed indicate a minimum caliper of 50 millimeters compared to the land use bylaw requirement of 60 millimeters. The placement and nature of landscaping that is proposed does not raise any concerns from a crime prevention through environmental design perspective. The upper floor windows on the south building elevation provide the opportunity to surveillance, an opportunity to see what's going on in the parking lot. We're working together with a planning consultant to put these things together, so I apologize for the choppiness of my presentation. Our recommendation, due to the overall design of the site complying with the land use bylaw and no opposition being received against the discretionary use, Planning and Development Services recommends approval subject to conditions.
Thank you very much. Who would like to start? I don't see a bunch of hands up, so. Member Glenn, did you have a question, or are you just adjusting your video feed?
No, just adjusting.
Okay, very good. I will start then. Just wondering, is there any conflict with our bylaws? I see that on the bottom left-hand side of the site plan, there's 7 parking stalls there that are accessible directly off of the back laneway. Does that present any issues for us? I'll pose that one to our administration.
The proposal meets the parking requirements.
Right.
With a less than 4% variance.
Right, it wasn't so much the quantity of the parking, it was the accessibility. I mean, that basically increases the size of the access from the laneway to 7 times, well, 9 feet, so 60 some plus there. I mean, it's 100 feet long. Does that present any issues?
I will refer this to Development Officer Chappell.
So in our review, we did circulate this among the departments that would have concern about access size, and nothing came up. So our position, I guess, is that this design is acceptable to the city.
Okay, very good. And we know what's adjacent to it on the other side of the alley there. It's not a particularly busy area opposite for entrances or exits. Does that line up with the Hannah Seeds business? Or I guess I'm just trying to eliminate any potential hazardous areas there with that parking. Having them back out directly onto an alley is not an ideal thing. I mean, I completely understand this is a unique parcel, and I appreciate the work that's went into it. I see that being as a potential issue. But it's just hard to tell without the adjoining property developments indicated on there as to what that is directly opposite of it. So I will leave it there. If it was circulated to the other departments and there was no strong objections, I certainly have no problem with the layout. I don't know that the one stall is certainly not a deal breaker for myself, but anyone else? I see no one with their little hands up indicated or mutually. Member Gulson, I see that you've joined us. That's good. Appreciate it. Do we have any motions for our consideration then? Member Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy, or well, Chair Creasy in this case, I guess. I would be willing to make that motion. It's just tough because you can't see me and have me read it out at the same time. So if we can agree that, let's see here, that it has, is it 37 conditions on it? Do I have that correct? For this
38.
one?
38.
There are 38, okay. So, yeah, okay, that's 38. Okay, so here we go. Be it resolved that the Municipal Planning Commission approve a commercial building with a care residence and accessory use storage building to be located at 4809 and 4813 51st Avenue lots 10 through 12, Block 4, RN1, and part of the Old Town Main Street District mixed use overlay with the following 38 conditions.
Thank you, Member Hibbs. I appreciate that. Anyone else from the commission? Any input before we continue? I do have Member Gullickson, go ahead.
I think Troy wanted to say something. He had his hand up.
I realize that. I was asking if anybody in the commission had any input. Very good. So as we said, we do have some guests with us. Ms. Perciato, appreciate you attending. Did you have some items that you were wondering about? I think that you've got your mute button on.
Can you hear me?
That's better. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
First off, Chairman Creasy, and my apologies. I thought you were going to put this through without us having an opportunity to comment. So,
Not at all.
I just hadn't heard at the beginning that we'd have an opportunity, but in speaking with Crystal now, that's the case. So I hope you like what you see there. Crystal's been great to work with as always. We had a little bit of a surprise on the condition 14. If you guys can pull that up. I realize, you know, I've done several different projects over my time and been involved in many municipal approvals, but I've never seen where the alley is to be paved. It's a real sticking point on our side. So when we designed this, our plan was to, I don't know if you've been down that alley, it's behind the Mohawk. And everything else back there, weeds, it's a mess. It's a mess. So our thought was that we would landscape that side, put a fence up and just take it out of view and out of sight. So in designing with PJB, their thought was it would be a little nicer to be able to sort of clean up the area. And we thought, okay, that's fine. You know, let's have an access because we had it designed another way. So now I didn't see this until Sunday, and then Monday it came out that there's a requirement to pave the alley. When I got it, the alley said to pave. It said it was very vague. It said to pave the gravel area of the alley. So what I'm going to ask today, the bottom line here is that we can't live with condition 14, and so if MPC has the power and the purview to change or remove that, that's what I'm going to ask you to do. We cannot agree to approval with condition 14 in there. So, I mean, I know the city's working on social master plan and beautification downtown, removing barriers, making, you know, inclusiveness of people with development disabilities. This project checks everything, but when we get to the alley, it's a mess. It's been beat down. It's from the deliveries behind the other buildings. Our thought was to block it off, but then they're never going to clean up their mess. It's just going to continue to be. But if we have to pay for cleaning up the neighbors' use and mess there, we cannot continue with a condition 14. So my request to you today is that 14 gets removed from this approval. Do you have any questions, or even when we do it, like who moves all the garbage cans in there? Who gets rid of the weeds? Do we pave up to their grade beam? It just seems to be very vague, and they did send me a drawing because I called Crystal right away. It's this drawing right here, I don't know if you have it. And then it says, apron to be extended to the south of the area. Well, I don't know. Again, is that south of this? Is it more? I have a real problem with paving the alley back there. I could see it if we were developing bare land and this was an outline plan for the area, but it's not. It's developed, and we're putting a significant investment in here. I know we can't judge things on dollars, but there's only good coming out of this project, but we can't get nickel and dimed on all of it. And condition 14, I've never seen it before in any application. So I did go look at, they did give me a couple of examples. One was the Remax building. So I went on Google Maps, I had a look at it. The alley was paved before they ever started conditions there. And the other was the green box, which still isn't done. So we'd be the first ones in here, and I don't think there's a hard policy drafted on this anyway. And so given all that information, I'm requesting that MPC removes condition 14 and we get on with building this project.
Right.
Thank you for your time, and I don't like to be the bad guy because I really believe it's really going to look great. But we've spoke, the owners, myself, and anyone involved here, and so our thought is we cannot proceed the way it is. Maybe it's a meeting with administration further, I don't know. The easiest way is we just remove it. It's a small portion. City takes care of it in the future. Like, we realize when we damage or remove or dig up, and perhaps we make, damage the alley. Of course we have to rebuild it, and of course we have to take our paving over there and somehow marry the old with the new. That's understood. But to pave the alley right up to the other buildings beside, I don't even know where the property line is. My guess is that those garbage bins are in the city property. I don't know that, but that's just my guess. So that's my thoughts. Again, I don't like to be the turkey, but we can't live with condition 14 in there. Everything else, no problem.
Very good. Was there any other items you wanted to touch on?
No, I'm just here to answer questions. If you guys have any, I think that everything is great. In regards to the lots to the west, yes, Hannes owns 5 lots to the west, and it goes quite a bit past any of those parking stalls. Parking, just to kind of give you guys a bit of background on the suites, these are young adults that'll never have a driver's license. So 2 parking stalls for 3 beds, I don't know if that's a multifamily. I realize it must be under care residence, but it's something you might want to look at in the future. I've seen what they do for assisted living and different care facilities. It's nowhere near that, but we can live with that. We've provided a lot of parking. We're not asking for a variance, very, very small. And in our calculations, we don't even have them. But when we got Crystal's information back, it was 1 stall, and that's the only variance we're asking for. So please, can we remove condition 14?
No, you've already went over that several times. Do you have any new information for us?
No.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Certainly we went through this type of thing in the past, and rarely is it met with overwhelming approval to spend dollars on paving city streets or alleys. So, I mean, this is not new to MPC, and we're happy to discuss it. I appreciate your reasonings for it. However, that is the way that the rules are set up. We have several instances around the city where paving of alleys is a requirement, but they are in fact graveled alleys as opposed to ones that are in a state of disrepair, as you have mentioned here. I just wanted to make sure that we're looking at the same documents. I believe that you referenced item number 14. Could it perhaps have been 13, or does it say 14 on your documents?
14.
Okay, because 14 at mine is bicycle parking, so I just wanted to make,
Administration was stuck with making some amendments on short notice. This paving of the lane became news to us on Monday, and so we did have to make an amendment to split up what was the original condition number 13 and create a condition number 14, which can be seen on the screen where it reads, applicant to pave a portion of the east lane approximately 32 meters in length by 6 meters wide from the existing apron. Yeah.
very good. Okay, so, and the way that reads then, to pay a portion of the repavement? So that this is not the entire alley, this is their share along that frontage. So were you aware of that stipulation, Mr. Corsiato?
No, when I asked about it, it just, in the original one, it said the gravel portion. So I had a look at it, and so I asked administration to clarify it. So that's when I got this drawing here. I don't know if you can see it, but what it shows is 9 meters. It states right in here, 32 meters by 6 meters. So 6 meters is the width of the alley, and 32 meters, of course, is the gravel area. So this is for full alley, is what I've received. So unless I have a mistake, of course we would always do our portion of it. It's an alley that is accessed. So if it's sharing a third of that, maybe it's city and the neighbors, that's not a problem. But what it's asking is for us to bear the entire cost to clean up somebody else's mess back there.
No, and I think that's a very, in my opinion, that's a reasonable expectation. I think that this has come about as a timing issue in order to satisfy the requirements of getting the information to the commission here in a timely way. There's been we dropped the ball a bit here, but basically what this is requiring, this is no different than it would be for any resident. If they were redoing their street or sidewalk, they have to pay for the frontage portion only. So naturally, in a case like that, then the person on the other side of the street pays the other portion as well. So it's not like you're not expected to pay the entire bill to repave the alley, I guess is what I'm saying, in a roundabout way. That's not a reasonable expectation.
That's good to hear.
Okay.
That's what it actually had stated the sizing by 6 meters by 32 meters. And so that's straight all the way across. So you can understand my concern. So maybe Crystal can clarify.
My understanding is that our director took a measurement and compared your submission with the aerial image. And I don't know if you can see the screen. Can you see my cursor moving around on there?
Mm-hmm.
No. Oh.
So
No.
this is approximately where the apron ends, and this distance here to roughly where the edge of your east access is, that is 32 meters.
It's not the distance, it's the width. It says right on here in condition 14, 6 meters.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how wide
That's 6
property
meters.
line?
Yeah,
Yeah.
6 meter wide lane.
Us to pave the entire alley. If we could simply revise this tonight, we don't have a problem sharing. But asking us to clean up the neighbors over here.
No, and unless the remainder of the commission differs with my opinion, I think that the intent was for you to pay for the portion applicable to that lot, which would be halfway on the alley for the distance that is outlined there. I don't think there was ever an intent for you to repave the entire width of the alley. But but certainly a portion of it that is appropriate for the lot.
If we could revise those conditions, then administration to say a portion or our portion, rather than 60 meters, if we could take that out. Because,
Sure.
I mean,
We'll let, Crystal, if you could just mull over that for the time being, and unless we have some other input, there's a couple other items here. In the preamble, we had mentioned, or you had mentioned, naturally there is with a development like this, there is an expectation for lot consolidation. However, that was not made a requirement. And I was just curious as to why not.
are you asking me or Crystal?
No, I'm asking Crystal.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. I'll turn my mic off for now.
Yeah.
No worries.
I think it just got missed. I think it's
Okay. So personally, I would like to see that added. I don't know if that'll be 38 or 39 or whatever, but it needs to be in there somewhere. I think, because I think it's just, I have no doubt that they're going to do it anyway, but to make it proper, it definitely needs to be consolidated. You can't be building this type of a structure on two lots at once. That just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'll add that in.
And the other item that I had a question about was the dark deposits in the I think it's from, on my notes, it's from 34 through 37, basically deals with deposits. And number 35 on mine, it says submit a downtown area redevelopment deposit. And if I could just get a brief explanation, a reminder as to what that specifically is for, as opposed to the development permit deposit and the other associated deposits. So specifically, what is the downtown area redevelopment deposit intended for?
The downtown area redevelopment deposit is for properties that are in the downtown area and are part of the overlay, which are required to have specific design elements. We created this security to protect our downtown area from any deviation of those designs that Lacombe has determined to be the way that we want our city to look. And so the entire DARP overlay, like I said, has specific characteristics and things that we need to see in our new buildings downtown. So for any commercial building, the security is $5,000. Typically for a house, it would be $3,000. So it's our hope that the builder builds what they say they're going to build, but then sometimes, on the drawings it says the actual product might look different than what's being proposed. So they implemented this security to protect the overlay.
No, that's fair. Okay, I appreciate that explanation. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't double dipping, so to speak, and I just wanted to be perfectly clear to everyone exactly what that particular deposit was for, so thank you.
Welcome. We're good on the development permit deposit?
Oh, no, the rest were fine. It was specifically that one because it appeared at first glance to me to be overlap, but no, I understand that now, so thank you.
You're welcome.
And if we could just bring up the members on the screen there so I could see the ones that are available. Did anyone else in the commission have any questions or thoughts on any of these items? Member Hibbs?
Yeah, so of course the motion is mine. So rather than 38 conditions, it would now be 39 conditions with that omitted condition put in. So revisiting the paving. Now in that condition, it says, one thing or the other. Who makes that decision as to which, is it the applicant that decides if they do one or the other? Who makes that decision?
Well, the commission can certainly direct tonight if you have a preference, or you can leave both in and we can work with the applicant.
Okay, and then my follow-up question to that is in the second option, it says we'll pay the city their share of the paving costs. Is that meant to mirror exactly what is outlined in the first option where that's the 32 meters times 6 meters?
Yeah, so in discussions with our infrastructure services director, they indicated that they want to see what they deem to be their share, and they deem that to be the 32 meters by 6 meters. So we'd like to see them pave the lane, or they have the option to not pave the lane, but enter into an agreement with the city so that that's paid when the city's ready to pave the lane. So we'd like to see the lane paved, but we're giving them an option to, so I think ultimately it'd be their decision to enter into that agreement.
Okay, and then a further follow-up question to that then. So what this section is saying is that this applicant only is being asked to pay for that portion, that 32 by 6 meters, and that no other body, whether it be the city or adjacent landowners, will be required to pay any of that. Is that correct?
At this time, yes. If they were to enter into a deferred servicing agreement and some other development were to arise, we might need to make amendments to this deferred servicing agreement and work with other property owners when that arises. But at this point in time, that's correct.
And then, can I just ask one more question? Sorry.
Sure.
So because that just says a deferred servicing agreement, that is just when the city at some time should decide, like there's no set timeline on that. So that could happen in 2 years, that could happen in 10 years. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Hibbs. I think the intent of this was to give this developer the option of having the ability to have a newly paved entrance on the east side, which I think was fair. The difficulty comes when we want to include adjacent landowners. We cannot force them through our proceedings here this evening to pay any portion of that type of work. That has to be done through a different mechanism, similar to what we're doing, for instance, on Len Thompson Drive. So it's a little different process. This was giving them the option. I don't think this was construed or should be construed to forcing this particular developer to repave the entire alley at their own expense. This was given as an option to give them the ability to do that if they wanted the new entrance into their property on the east side, which may or may, for some developers that may be fine. We have heard tonight that they're not really in agreement with that. So if they choose to pay for the portion of the repaving, we've given them that ability, that option to do that. But the pavement will be done on the city's timeline. So as long as they're willing to accept the consequences of whichever choice that they choose to make, then that's fine. Does that make sense? So they've got the option of only paying for that portion. I'm going to say it's basically half the width of the paving, but that doesn't mean it's going to be done this year or next. It's going to be done on the timeline of the schedule. It may be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be either. So this gives them the option to do it if, while they've got the crews there paving their driveway and whatnot, they're welcome to do that portion if they so choose, and remove them from further obligation when the city chooses to do the remainder of the laneway. So either way, I think it gives them some nice choices. We're not forcing them to do it. However, it does have some consequences should they choose not to. Member Gullikson?
Thank you, Chair Creasy. So if they do that choice, does that, if they put the money in the pot, or if they choose to do it, would the city come up with a third of the money? Now? Would we be obligated to do that?
We would not.
So we wouldn't be part of that agreement, but if he waits until a later date, then we would be? If we choose.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. Any additional questions or concerns? Member Nauchin?
I'd like to touch on this one just as somebody who's interested in the dark period, because I own a building locally myself. I understand the opinion of the developer here and the way that there are so many properties in the area that it is hard to place the expense on one individual without the ability to do that on any other individual. It's my opinion that they shouldn't be responsible for something like this, period.
Anyone else? Member Hibbs?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just having a problem really understanding when, Chair Creasy, when you're saying half, like when you're referencing half of the laneway, are you referencing the length or the width? Just for my clarification.
What I said was this option gives them the ability to pave the east side, which in all practicality, they have to do the entire width. You can't just pave half of it, otherwise it will be a disaster. So if, as an option, they can do that now and remove themselves from an obligation of participating in paving down the road, or they can leave it as is and put up with it in the condition that it is, and then wait and pay their share, which will be half of basically around the entire property, if they would prefer, which would be halfway if when it's done through the mechanism similar as I quoted on Len Thompson. And then the other half would be borne by the property owners on the other side. I believe that's correct anyway. Member Nauchin?
So for Sally's question, just for clarity, you're suggesting 32 meters long, 3 meters wide would be their responsibility, correct?
No.
In the caveat.
Only if that's done at a future date at the city's choosing through the mechanism as described. Then if that is half of the width of the paved area of the alley, then that would be correct. We have no indication of the actual width of the alley, but
Unless development officer Chapel has a different measurement, but that's my understanding as well, Mr. Chair.
My understanding is that the city wants to see 6 meters by 32 meters paved. And if they are unable to do that at this time and choose to defer this project into the future, it may be 32 meters by 6 meters or possibly even less.
so a little bit out of form here. I'm going to ask Mr. Porciato, Troy, given those two options, Can you understand the reasoning behind it? We're not forcing you to pave the entire alley now, but you have the option of doing so if you want the new entrance on the east side, and that will count towards your half of paving when the remainder of the alley is done at a later date.
I understand now. That's not what was explained to me previously, but if what you're saying is we have the choice whether we want to pave or whether we want to live with a gravel alley at this point and wait until the city is in there and pay our portion, or at least then we have the choice. It's not being forced on us to do it right now. So if that's what the understanding is, I understand 100%. I mean, that's all. But that's not what I've seen, or the way I read it. It's so maybe it just needs a little clarification on there. So right now, I guess to clarify, we could build this project and leave that gravel portion gravel and move on. If we wanted to not have our clients, drive over through the potholes and bumps and everything, that's up to us to do it. And then we would have to bear the entire cost. That's what you're telling me, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's not the way I was explained or the way it reads to me, but as long as we have that understanding, or maybe we can revise that condition to state applicant has the choice of, regardless of whether it's deferred servicing or paving. I mean, there's a cost to it. It doesn't matter whether it's now or later, but we just don't want to have to pay for the cost of putting everything up over there. So.
Okay, and obviously there was some confusion with this, and my apologies for that.
That's okay.
We can either leave it worded like that. In any event, we're going to put to the satisfaction of the development officer, and I think that we've been very clear as to how we expect it to go here. We do not think that it's worded 100%, but to expect that to be done here now. I think that we have the intent, and I think that between yourself as representative and our administration, you can come up to a satisfactory agreement now that we know how it is intended to be. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, now if we could just move it up in the capital plan for next year, I'd really do.
That would even be better yet, wouldn't it? Exactly. We'll certainly see what we can do there. I'm not sure, we haven't discussed in great detail next year's capital, but we certainly know that it obviously, just by the way this is worded, that it's one that ought to be considered. So we appreciate that. Member Douchin.
Sorry, my hand's up from before.
Oh, okay. Any additional input? So to be just so we're not under the impression that we're all voting on the same thing here, the conditions, the 37 are as is, and then we've added 2 additional, regardless of the numerical order. There's 2 additional, so there'll be 39 in total. The first one was to do with the paving that was this split out from either 13 or 14, however it is. And the final one was the expectation for lot consolidation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Very good. I see no additional hands up, so unless I do, I am going to call for the question. All those in favor? And Member Gallant? There she is. Thank you. Appreciate that. So that was all in favor. Thanks for your patience, Mr. Parciano. Appreciate it. Look forward to a wonderful development in that area. I've been familiar with that area. I grew up just down the street from it which is unfortunately past the half-century mark. And that, I would suggest, by those elevations and whatnot, that's going to be a wonderful addition to the neighborhood and to the end of that street. So you can pass that on to the to the lot owners. And on a more personal note, the building I see bears the name of Mr. Hannes, which is appropriate. And I think that he would be very proud of that development. So thank you for attending this evening.
Thank you all, and Trish and Toby are in attendance, so they've heard everything. So you're absolutely correct. It will be a beautiful day, and there's a lot of pride there from all of us. So, okay, thank you, MPC. Really appreciate your help tonight.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. So that takes us to the first, listed as first on our agenda for the secondary suite. And Development Officer Chappelle, would you care to go through that one for 13 Bruns Crescent, please?
Sure. An application has been received for a secondary suite to be located at 13 Bruns Crescent. The bungalow style, oh, maybe I'll get the screen on the right thing here. The bungalow styled home is occupied by a family who lives on the main floor, while the owner resides in the basement with a private access. The basement includes 2 bedrooms, a living room, and a shared furnace and hot water tank area. The kitchen does not include a stove, which would require a 220 or 240 volt electrical outlet or gas equivalent at this time. The landowner has opted to legalize the existing suite in order to establish 2 separate mailing addresses. So just to be clear, the basement does not have a stove. Typically, it would not require a development permit, but in order to get separate post, they need the permit. Neighboring property consultations were sent out to 22 adjacent landowners. 2 responses were received in support of the application, and 1 phone call was received with a number of questions, including will the size of the building increase and how many occupants will reside in the suite. Nothing is changing on this site, and the number of occupants is not changing either. The department's response was such. The existing basement suite would typically, see, I got ahead of myself. The existing basement suite would typically not require a development permit because the number of cooking facilities in the home is 1. With respect to the Alberta Building Code, they need to do some minor renovations to bring the basement suite up to current building code standards for a typical secondary suite. The city will flag this home as one with a suite, ensure all of the necessary inspections occur, and issue the suite its own civic addressing, which will allow the landowner and his tenants to obtain separate mailboxes with Canada Post. The two parking spaces are required for the main floor, and 2 parking spaces are required for the suite. Between the attached double car garage and the large driveway, which could accommodate 4 vehicles, the department is of the opinion that there is adequate parking for the site. With respect to the number of suites allowed on the block, this suite would be the first. A total of 3 suites are deemed acceptable on this block in accordance with the land use bylaw. As the block on which 13 Bruns Crescent sits can accommodate a suite at this location and off-street parking will not be required, Planning and Development Services recommends approval subject to conditions.
Thank you very much. So the number of parking stalls required is 4 then?
Yes.
Which they easily meet that. Given that big driveway.
Yes.
And the double garage. Okay. Very good. I just didn't hear the number of required stalls.
A total of 4.
Okay. Member Gullickson?
Thank you, Chair Creasy. I'll move that the Municipal Planning Commission approve a secondary suite to be located at 13 Bruns Crescent, Lot 7, Block 1, Plan 812659, with the following 6 conditions.
Thank you. So with respect to the stove, the cooking facilities, at some future date, should this individual decide to put that in, the only requirement at that point in time is to obtain the appropriate permit, whether it's gas or electric. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think the fact that they don't have one now, to me, is kind of irrelevant. We're still we're still acknowledging this as a second suite, so the result is still the same. Whether they choose to have an additional cooking facility is kind of their choice. I don't really much care, but Member Gallant?
Thank you, Chair Creasy. So it's a shared furnace. Do they not need their own source of heat in a suite?
If that's the case, then our safety codes officer will have to address these things with the property owner. But we don't have anything in our land use bylaw that speaks to that type of technicality.
Yeah, that is definitely a building permit related issue, which has been addressed through one of the items one of the conditions on the list. Fair enough question, though.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I do not see anybody, so the motion before us then, all those in favor? That is unanimous for approval. Thank you, everyone. And item number 5, we've got a summary of the roles for the Lacoma District Historical Society and Heritage Resources Committee for demolition applications. Who is going to be taking that item?
Me.
Jennifer, go ahead.
All right, so the Heritage Resource Committee and the Lacoma District Historical Society just asked that I give the commission a quick rundown, and we did change the process a little bit. So when we receive an application, we check to see if it's 50 years or older. And then we use section 14.5, so the historic district area overlay of our land use bylaw, to determine how to handle it. Then the Lacoma District Historical Society researches and conducts an inspection, and they prepare an end-of-life cycle report, which is then forwarded to the Heritage Resource Committee. Then the committee holds a meeting. They review the end-of-life cycle report from the society and the city's policies, and then they make a recommendation and create a separate report that they then send to the development officer. And then the development officer will include that report from the committee, not the society, and then MPC can make their decision.
Thank you for that. In my opinion, I think there was perhaps a mistake when that was initially drafted to include the 50-year limit. I don't think any reasonable person would suggest that any building is either worthy of or needs to be protected merely because it's 50 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It very well could be,
yeah.
But just based on that single criteria, that is
absolutely
incorrect.
So
That is the way the land use bylaw is written now.
Correct,
So
and that's what I'm saying. I
we're
think
working
we need to acknowledge that is due for update, and I think perhaps council might be considering some alternate options in the future. However, that's the way that it reads now. So I think this update is certainly in order, but would look forward to maybe some positive changes and some updating in that regard, because I really don't think that was the intent, even though that's how it reads. I just don't think that passes the litmus test, but.
It has created some confusion, I think, and which is why the committee asked for, the HRC requested.
Fair enough, absolutely. Member Gullickson?
Thank you, Chair Creasy. I just have a question regarding how long does this process delay them getting their permit for demolition? Is there a lot of delay, or does it run simultaneous with something else?
there is quite a bit of delay.
We try to run it simultaneously as much as possible, but there is time involved in doing the assessment, the historical assessment, and then the HRC meeting.
Yeah.
They don't meet
And
as
then,
frequently as MPC.
yeah, and then depending on the timelines, we have to wait for the next MPC to bring it there. So it could be quite a gap between these meetings.
Yeah, it seems like this could put a little bit of strain on somebody that, you know, has a tight timeline for the demolition of a property that isn't historical, but is 50 years old, and they have to wait for this approval. It just doesn't make sense.
Absolutely.
I think that I would be surprised if we weren't all in agreement on that fact, and I think that's one of the items that council will have to be considering when there is some amendments made to this bylaw, because you've pretty much hit the nail on the head with that. It's unnecessary red tape in an area that, in all likelihood, does not need it. This is far too widespread of an impact on properties that it really does not need to be involved with. Good intentions, not executed necessarily the way that most people would be pleased about. Member Hibbs?
Thank you, Chair Creasy. Yeah, so the other factor that I just want to, mention is what is the criteria that, the society or the committee is using when they're making their recommendations as far as, what has historical value. And in the case of most recently where they were recommending against demolition, for me, that is actually the most problematic part, because by making a recommendation to MPC to not allow demolition, that's fairly significant. And now MPC has to wade through that, where you've got conflicting, a recommendation from one body, and then obviously the developer is coming with another idea, and then we now have to weigh in whether we, agree that it's historically significant enough. I don't know. It just creates a storm, and I do agree with Chair Creasy saying that this is coming back to council, and that is probably where it ultimately lays. But I think that is the crux of the problem right there, to be honest with you. So I guess I just add that for commentary, and I definitely echo the idea that this 50 years is becoming more and more problematic as time moves on. To consider that houses built in the 70s could potentially be falling under this kind of is a little bit mind-blowing. So, but yes, that's just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Kirk, was it your intention to have that information accepted as information, or is that not necessary?
Oh, it was just to present for information, yeah.
Very good, thank you.
You bet.
Who's going to give us a summary of permits issued by the Development Authority? Back to you.
All right, so I have been busy, so I have quite a bit to go over with you guys. The first one was a 7% side yard setback variance on an existing garage. So 18 property owners were notified. No opposition was received. So that one was issued, and the appeal period ended last month on February 3rd. The next one is a 10% side yard setback variance on an existing detached dwelling. And so that one, there was 30 property owners notified. No opposition was received. So that one was issued. The appeal period ended on March 11th. The next one is a 14% rear yard setback variance on an existing deck. 31 property owners were notified. No opposition was received. Their appeal period will end on March 19th. Another one is a manufacturing general / warehousing occupancy up at 7102 52 Street, kind of by Berman University. 8 property owners were notified. No opposition was received. So that one was conditionally approved, and their appeal period ends on March 22nd. And we did a cleanup at this 7102 52 Street, so that's why there's many on the list and a few more to come. This one is an educational facility in Bay 12. So again, 8 property owners were notified, no opposition. Appeal period ends March 22nd. Then we have another one for manufacturing, general and warehousing for units 18 and 19. So again, 8 property owners, no opposition received. Their appeal period ends on March 29th. And we have a 9% front yard fence height variance at St. Andrew's United Church for the play school. 24 property owners were notified, no opposition received, and that one will end on March 29th. And then the last one is a home occupation 2 for personal services, massage and aesthetics. 16 property owners were notified, 4 comments were received in support, so it was issued, and the appeal period ends on April 5th.
Wonderful. So I don't know how the rest of the commission feels, but if we keep adjusting our rules and bylaws for administration to run by, where they're gonna make us obsolete. I don't think so, but I think this is a great example of the commission and council making some decisions that allowed a little more latitude, and in those areas where there is no opposition, that they are able to move ahead and not fall victim to unnecessarily red tape like was discussed earlier. So that's great. It's good. It's good to see development moving along in Lacombe, because there's lots of communities that are lacking development. So that's great to see.
And most of these setback variances come from compliance certificates being completed and it not meeting the requirements. So then we're able to kind of sell those or send those out. So lots of real estate action going on too.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great. I don't see any other hands up there by the thing, so I'll move on. Our next MPC meeting then is tentatively set for April 7th. I'm assuming that because it's worded tentatively, that we really have no applications under consideration currently.
Correct.
But there could be. So you can set that aside in your calendars, and I'm sure that Jennifer will advise us closer to the date if in fact we have the need to convene. I think that pretty well concludes our business, unless anybody has anything that we've overlooked, or anybody care to make that motion we've all been waiting for? If not, we'll just have to sit here all night. Member Gullickson?
I'll move, we adjourn.
Very good. Thanks, everyone. We are adjourned at 6:08.
Very good.
Thank you.